Sometimes you want to pan, you want something to sound at the left speaker, this one I want to sound at the right speaker. You want to put effect only on the ambience, you don't want to put it on the voice, or you want to put it only on the voice, you don't want it on the ambience. So when you have your multi-track, the ability to blend all of these things together is called mixing in the right proportion. When you are done and you have your mix down, you export them out as either an MP3 file or WAV file or OMF or AFF, then you go to the mastering.
Hi, and welcome to the Everything Voiceovers podcast. I'm T-Code, an African voiceover talent from Nigeria, and this is my podcast where I take on voiceover topics from an African perspective. In this episode, I interview Nigerian voiceover artist, producer, coach, and radio manager Charles Alade. With over a decade experience as an audio producer and sound design expert, Charles takes us into the basics of audio production for voiceovers. Sit back and enjoy this episode. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Everything Voiceovers podcast. I am T-Code, your host, and as usual, I bring on board voice talents across Africa to discuss voiceover related topics. Now, today on this episode, I have with me an expert voice actor, audio producer, and radio manager from Nigeria. He's currently the Chief Operating Officer at Hebbymix Studios Limited, a multimedia company, and currently the General Manager of Royal Roots 92.9 FM, Ibadan in Southwest Nigeria. With over a decade in the voiceover business, he has founded the Voiceover Bootcamp and recently went on viral on social media for commercial for Titan Rice. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Charles Alade. Mr. Charles, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well. I'm delighted to be here.
For those who are just hearing his voice for the first time on the podcast, I'll just do a little bit of throwback. If you remember, if you're in Nigeria and you care about voiceovers, or even in the entertainment space, you probably had seen a video of a guy who did this commercial for Titan Rice. I can't run through exactly how it was, but I can remember the commercial was like an old commercial, and just like magic, it was in a studio, kind of created what that commercial production felt like, and it went viral, right? So if you remember that episode, I probably would just slot a clip of that, the sound clip of that, and put it in this podcast.
It's your party jollof. Make sense, not be small.
Much later.
This your party jollof. Make sense, not be small. Where you for buying this rice?
I beg, I no fish out.
Oh, God for you. This one way they praise Mama Ibeka. You don't make her they feel like superstar. Not because now.
This gentleman that I'm speaking to in today's episode is the brain and is the face behind that commercial. I'm really happy to have you here. I remember seeing that commercial and I was like, oh, wow, I need to talk to you. I need to bring you on board. We have a lot to talk about. So welcome again to the podcast.
My pleasure.
Yeah. And before we go into the whole doing voiceovers and all of that, it's my tradition on the podcast to do a little bit of knowing how your name is being pronounced for our diaspora audience. So what's the meaning of your name, Charles Alade?
Okay, my name is Charles Alade. Alade is a Yoruba name. Okay, I think that's all. But Charles Alade is how the name is pronounced.
Alade. So Charles Alade, and what's the meaning of Alade?
Well, from the story that my dad said to me, we're like kingmakers, where we come from. The owner of the crown.
All right. So tell me a bit about growing up for you in Nigeria.
Yeah, I think I was born at number 16 Fimbas Road, Akoka, Lagos. Stayed there for about 5 years before we moved to Abliegba, Lagos. But it was a tough experience as a young boy. His mother is a primary school teacher, government primary school teacher, and my father a clergy. So it's from a home of disciplinarians. These guys just want books, and while others can lose it all, be themselves, play around, watch movies, go to other neighbors' house to see a movie. We do not have that privilege because For us, it's a crime, to leave the house without our parents' approval. I mean, I remember there was a day myself and my brother, by the way, we were 4 of us, 2 boys, 2 girls. I said to my brother, we went to our mom's friend's house. We just wanted to go and see a movie. So we were so sure that if she asks us, where are you coming from? We're going to tell her that, we went to see a friend. Thinking that, that way, let her just, free us. I mean, I cannot forget the beating in my life. So our parents don't want us to go out. Church, school, home. That was the, growing up for me until JSS 3. I started music early. So I started gaining freedom. Music is one thing that we allow that freedom, especially if your parents don't have anything against it. So my dad, who is a clergy, I started telling him, Dad, people are demanding for my giftings, in all the churches around. So I go play around. We're living at Ablegba, and I'll go play on the island,
Wow.
Yaba, if you know Lagos very well. Everywhere. Yeah. So I was already playing around. In fact, the first time I'm going to travel by air in my life, 2006, it was still the drum set, that brought the opportunity. It was like a joke. Like, guy, you're traveling, like, is this person kidding me?
Wow.
So music was it for me growing up. Music and playing the drum, because the drum set was my first love. So after then, I came to Ibadan for the first time in 2008 when I gained admission to study music technology at the Polytechnic Ibadan. So I'm a musicologist by training, aside, being a mass communicator.
That's interesting. And I remember we were talking a few just recently before today, and you were telling me about how you delved into production. It's obvious that you're a music person originally, and that endeared you towards being a music producer, which you are. But now you're doing voiceovers. In fact, you're probably most popular for voiceovers, and you've been in this industry for over a decade. Why did you choose to do voiceovers when music was originally a thing?
Yeah, I think in life, there is need for us to transition into all our giftings. The truth is that an average person has at least 4 gifts that you should be able to utilize well, maximize. But these things are not things you bring out at the same time, because there's also tendency for you to confuse yourself if you try to do everything at the same time. The analogy that I had for gifting is like a young boy or a kid with plenty toys. If a kid has plenty toys and wants to play with all the toys about the same time, he or she will destroy the toys and will be left with nothing. Also, somebody said that when there are too many road paths, you may miss your way. So it is better off to understand that even if I have 4 gifts, every of my 4 gifts will not thrive about the same time. Between this age and this age, or at this season of my life, what am I supposed to be doing? What makes sense of this age, of this time? And then when you transition, okay, I think I need to drop this now. So like I mentioned, it was first singing and drumming, and then radio took a lot, a larger part of my life. And now I hardly talk on radio except for one show that I host on the radio station that I manage. But now it's voiceover for me. Music is boring to me, producing it. I will not lie to you. To sit down and make beats, you make the beat for hours or for days as the case may be. And then the artist comes to record. And then when they're done recording, you start mixing. And then after mixing, you start mastering. Over what? And I realized that even now, what I would make on doing song for hours, I will make times 5 of that on one commercial, on one voiceover of 60, 30, or 45 seconds. So music was what I started with, because I also realized that why I went to production was because I knew it was expensive and still expensive to push music anywhere in the world. You're looking for money to record song. You want to pay your producers. You want to pay instrumentalists. When you are done, you are cracking your head out to shoot musical videos. When you are done with musical videos, you now need to start paying media houses for promotion, even though it's not supposed to be so, but that's what we do in Nigeria. I realized that's a rat race that no matter how fast you run, you still end up as a rat. So I said, I don't have the capacity for this stress. So I felt, let me start helping others to achieve their dream. There are other people who also want to sing. Maybe when I help them to make their song, I can make money from them that I can now put back into my own music. And that was how I ventured into production in 2011. I had my own studio. I employed a music producer because I was just finding my hands, around, using all those DAWS and all. So I employed a guy who was a colleague in school and was gonna drop out. Meanwhile, in 2008, when we had a COS program, he could not continue with us. So I remember him, like, guy, and I have a studio, I have equipment. Can you come use my studio? And then you pay me a token. He said, oh, wow, why not? And then comes around, do music for my clients. And then from there, I started learning the ropes. And that was how I could stand on my own. So it was first the idea of, I can't continue to run this race of making music because I want to be a superstar. Let me start helping others. By helping them, I can make money and I can help myself. So that's how I ventured into music production. And then after a while, the experience I had with Radio Nigeria in 2011, that same year, the likes of Felice Osagede, Emeka Darlington, Collins Teke, there's this guy with Nigerian Info now, Quadri. These are the guys that were on radio at that time, the big boys in Ibadan. And, I just love the way they do it. I'm like, okay, I think I can do the same thing. So I remember I would join Collins to package his program. He asked me to come up with, a segment on it, like that. And I just started loving radio. And then I got on radio fully, did that till 2020. I was with Radio Nigeria till 2020, December 2020, when I answered and said, enough of this. And when I thought I had finished with Radio Nigeria, another job came with another radio, Solutions FM. And then my guy said, come, I know you're tired of radio. You have suffered, from all kind of radio stations. I know you don't want to do radio again, but this one is coming. They will pay you well. I think you should give it a shot. So I tried for the last time. So I did that for a few months, all right? I think I came in July 2021. And then by March 2022, I became the head of station at Royal Roots 92.9 FM. So it's been like that. So voiceover came in between from radio. While I was doing radio, by the way, a lot of the top voiceover guys come to my studio to produce their jobs. They just come around, come with a script, guy, let's do your studio, pay me, and then go with their job, package it. That's what Collins was doing. That's what this other guy was doing. Quite a number of them. I can't remember them now. They just come around, use my studio, pay me, because I was into all what they were doing. So I could grasp all of the idea behind the craft. Like, okay, so this is what you do here. Oh, this is what you do here. This is how you land your voice. This is, the prestigious pause. This is, the voice modulation. I started noticing the things they were doing to make the best out of their voice. Also, not forgetting that my background was music. So the first thing we learned in music is to score. Scoring is like word for word, note for note. So I mean, the days of Donnie McClurkin, where there was really no internet like that, we hear the song and imitate and get it. So I grew up learning music to imitate professional singers. So if I can imitate good singing, then imitating talking is cheap for me. So that was my background. Music plus production, then back to voiceover. So when I got into voiceover, it was just easy for me. It was just fun. It was just me expressing all I had in my inside, many years ago.
Wow. That's quite a long journey. You've done radio for a time. And I enjoyed hearing you talk about the different people you worked with. Now you were able to learn one or two things from them. A very good point that you made was about imitating and listening. One of the theories that I have about some of the best voice actors, or if I would say it this way, I think if you were going to be a very good voice actor in this business, it doesn't just start with your voice. I think it starts, first of all, with your ears. How
Yes.
good you are at observing things with your ears, listening, picking sounds, enunciations, modulations, emotions.
Do you know that we have
Yeah.
a course in music technology? It's called ear training. And that's a course on its own. If you fail it, you're done for. And one of the classes we have is such that you're going to back the piano, all right? And then a player on the piano will strike a note and ask you what note was that.
Interesting.
I mean, only people who understand music will get what I'm trying to explain. So I strike a note, and then I ask you, what note was that? Is it the dominant? Is it the submediant? Is it this? I mean, I'm talking about the technical names now. The submediant, which we call the do, the re, the mi, the fa, the sol. And like, what note is that? So you are closing your eyes, you are backing the piano, and you must be correct.
That's I think seriously, if we put that in voice acting, it will make a lot of sense. And this is not to say that you need to sound exactly like someone else, but you have to learn what makes those other people sound very good, and then adopt that. Someone said some of the smartest artists are those who are able to copy and reinvent what they've copied, right? So that's a very smart thing to learn from what you've said. Before we leave that conversation about radio, because I also have a radio background, so this is a very interesting conversation for me. I did radio for about 5 years before deciding to stay with Voiceovers full time. I also observed around my transition into becoming a voice actor, like doing voiceovers, one of the few challenges that I had was being able to leave the announcerial or the announcer voice, right, or the commercial system, and understand that voiceover is not just about always putting energy and the effort like you're selling big buy 5 of
very right. Very right.
I think that a lot of voice actors, I mean a lot of OAPs rather, radio personalities, they're stuck with that type of rendition, and it's always a struggle. I've observed that pattern. I also had that issue. What do you say to that? You've been in both circles, and one way or the other, I believe you've been able to, balance it. How do you think that dynamic can work better for OAPs that want to transition fully into voice actors?
All right, so people need to first understand that voiceover, in the simplest definition, is putting your voice over a sound or over a picture where you're not necessarily there, but people can hear you and can say, this is this person. This is a boy, this is a girl, this is a child, this is an adult, all right? So it has nothing to do with the announcer style thing. I mean, I was talking with Peter Baker in one of our sessions that he had with us. So there are gigs that come and they'll tell you no announcer style, like capital letter. They don't want the announcer voice thing. Talk like human being. Talk
conversational.
like you can talk to your friend. So it's not every gig that comes with Roy Word 92.9. I mean, you can't do that all of the time. There are some products, some brand that will not work for. And then if you listen to, the telecommunications advert, the normal way you'd have talked. The way you would have spoken on a normal day. So when the announcer things to come, yes, it may be needed for a call to action or, just the latter part or payoff. But, you don't have to be that an announcer or the radio person to excel in voiceover. That's the truth. Peter Baker sent me a link on Voice 123 at the point. I saw it quite late in the night. It was a sentence. The criteria for the job is Nigerian English or Ghana. It was specified. Talk like a young adult, like you are angry, and express this line. So how does announcer start coming to that? In fact, if you do that, you just said this one does not know what he's doing. And you would have thought that, okay, you wanted to really kill it. So everybody that can talk can be a voiceover artist. If you can talk and you can be heard, you are clear, you can be understood, I think you can do well in voiceover. You just need to identify where your area of strength is and excel at it.
Yeah, identify where your area of strength is. Also, very importantly, you need to learn a lot about the craft, and good enough. It's one of the things that you offer as a service with the voiceover bootcamp. But before we get into the voiceover bootcamp and other matters like production, let's talk about that viral video. That was a few months ago. All of a sudden, everybody started tagging me to this video. I opened was it on Instagram? Was it on Twitter? It was everywhere. I checked it out and I saw this person. You were on a heart. It was a commercial that you had done many years ago, I believe. And then you videoed yourself in the studio. You were literally with a plate of food. Maybe you had a cup or something, and you just did it. Like, it was almost as though everything we were hearing in that commercial was done real live in that studio. Let's talk about, before we get into the technicalities and the production of that and other skits, did I say skits? Commercials that you've recorded and you did a video for. What was that moment like for you? What inspired you to create that video that went viral?
Beautiful. I think I was just in my house. Let me say I was in my bathroom. That's where my inspiration comes from.
A lot of that happens. Yeah, I get it.
So it just dawned on me, Charles. First off, nobody knows your face. They have only been hearing your voice. One. Two is that you hardly find voiceover artists, doing the behind the scene of their works. I mean, people who are in the movie industry do that. They show you how it's done. It's not magical. It's real. It's natural. It's not supernatural. Charles, can you show something that depicts how this is created? And so I got to the studio that morning. I told my guy, in fact, I literally brought that dish from home. And the food, my wife put it in the cooler for me. So I put it back into that bowl. And I wanted to create a scene of a party where somebody is eating and talking. You know, when you're talking and there's food in your mouth, there's a way you sound. And that was what I wanted. Like, okay, somebody's in the party enjoying a particular meal or rice, and is asking the owner of the party, like, this rice is nice. Where you for buy am? That kind of thing. And, and then another person said, he said, not because not Titan rice, that kind of thing. Then she answered with, I can't even remember the lines again. She answered with, what's her response again? She answered and said, I know fish shout, so like she's now feeling herself, feeling good. Yeah. And then the other person cast and said, no, it's not like you're a special cook. It's because it's Titan rice. And that was it. Acting the first guy who was eating, the lady who was the party owner, the guy who now confirmed was Titan rice. Then my voice came in as the announcer, Titan rice is and then the music in that jingle, that voiceover was also done and produced by myself, from the beats to the songs to the instrumentation. I did everything.
That's interesting. Let's talk a bit about the technicality, and we will talk about the aftermath of that video going viral. I know I made an assumption initially that you created the video. I mean, you produced the video years ago. I just want you to confirm that because there were different voices in that voiceover, that particular commercial. Was it a collaborative effort where the other voice actors in that job, or it was just you?
I'm the only one in that job. In fact, to be honest, the only voice that was there that I still acted and I would have done if I had nobody was my wife. So yes, so she was the lady. I said, babe, just help me. She was like, oh, just stop stressing me. This is your jingle. I said, please, I have a picture in my mind. Just help me say, oh, God, I no fish shout. So, and then she did that. And by the time I was done with it, she was wild, So every other voice was mine. The other man, the first man, the other man, the guy who did the announcing, every other thing. Except herself. I said, babe, just help me say, oh God, no fish out. I did it myself. I didn't like the way it was sounding. I could have treated it. I know how to pitch shift, had a few things. I said, I want it really natural. But while I was creating behind the scene, I acted it, and I think that was what, got a lot of people like, is this a wizard or something?
I mean, it was impressive to see that BTS, but now let's get technical. Let us talk about, first of all, when did you do this commercial that we're talking about? Because it was totally a throwback. A lot of people could trace that to many years ago, right? So when was the original commercial produced?
Yeah, I think it was not really far. It was like 2 years ago, I think.
Okay.
It was 2 years ago. And then the behind the scene was done last year. I had shot that video and uploaded it since early last year.
Wow.
So I'm telling you the truth.
Wow.
Early last year. Maybe
so it took over a year
March,
for the internet to really discover that video.
I tell you the truth. So, I mean, I was in church when people started tagging me, Wole, Demo Pumping, all of them like, Charles, you're here. You're going viral. You're here. I was just seeing all kind of mention. Today posted it, mentioned my page, mentioned the Voiceover Bootcamp page, the same thing with Yaba Left, with them with G-Street on Twitter. Everywhere. That weekend, I got home on Sunday, replying DM for hours. We love what you do. Can you do this for us? We love it. What do you charge? I'm like, God.
Wow.
So, and since then, I've not rested, to be honest with you. The aftermath of that one video is crazy.
It's crazy.
And I have a lot of them. I still have a lot of them on my page, but fortunately or unfortunately, just that one was there. But I'm sure if people get to see the other ones, they'll just give up and say, let's get this guy. It's not okay.
I've gone through them, and I must say that was raw talent that I saw. Not just the fact that you voice different characters, either in Yoruba or in English or in Pidgin, but even the production process.
Yes, brilliant. Yes. Brilliant. I think for me, my production is my greatest strength. I will not lie to you. I can't compromise it. If you're gonna work with me, I'm gonna drill the person. Like, no, if the editing is not there, I won't let it go. I don't wait for my clients to say, we don't like this part. I want to make it as real as possible. I want to give you, and I want to get a wow, thank you. That's my motive. I don't just want you to pay me and say, yeah, it's a good job. I want you to pay me and still say thank you after I'm delivering your job. So that's for me, that's my focus. So I wait on it, kill it, re-edit, revoice if I have to, till I am satisfied. And I don't leave any space like, okay, let's just go like that. No, I won't let it go.
Okay, now, something I'm very curious about is the process, the production process. For that very well, before we move on to other things. In the video, we saw you with the plate of rice. We saw you doing all of those things as though it was done right there. But I mean, being a producer myself, I know a lot of this thing, it's not exactly like what you did in front of us. Although I know you could have captured some of those sounds in behind the microphone, but sometimes we get some of the sounds online, right? So tell me a bit of the process to that, because it seems to a lot of people that just right there you cooked it up. And was it exactly how you did it, or did you have some tracks, soundtracks and all of that from the internet?
So I think the only element that I had to import was the ambience of a roadside ambience, like a crowd.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I added. A blend of it with music. So I got this song from this lady, Duduke lady. What's her name? See me. You know, she has this all the parts to it and so that was the song you see, because before I start my job, I'd finished it on my head. So I needed a roadside ambience party, like plenty of people making noise, just like they would do in a normal African person party, a local person's party. It's always rowdy and noise. You know, so I put that noise on the background, laid the music also a bit on it, sounding not too loud, to say that, okay, music is going on, and then party, people are shouting also on the background. Then the food part, it was exactly the way I produced it. But in the real production, I was eating beans.
In the real production?
Yes.
You were literally
I was eating at home, actually. Honestly.
Oh, okay.
I was eating.
And you're recording all of that?
Yes, I recorded it. So I went close to my mic. I did more of, I first used the spoon to do crank, 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 to just create impression. You know, no normal person will eat like that, but I needed that, I needed that effect. Yes, I need that effects, you know, to give me like, okay, people are eating, or this particular person is eating. And then to put the food in my mouth and speak with the food in my mouth. Because the idea was to see this person is eating and talking, because he could not just wait to express how delicious the food is. So, so there was no way I would have talked normally and we give me that effect. So I needed to put food in my mouth and now talk with it. And then the other guy who was no madam. There's something we call pitch shift.
Yeah.
I may act close to it, but if I still want to make it go either more deep or high, and that's why the knowledge of music comes in. You know, on the piano, you know that, okay, if you are going from your C, you're going back to B to A, then you're going lower the octave. So I just tweaked it a little bit to say, okay, I don't want this person to get close to my voice at all. Like another street brother that is, you know, those thick voice, tough people, you know, pitch shift that person a bit. And but it was so good, or I could imitate so much that I could act out the production. And that was what tripped people, like, this is no different from what he played afterwards and what he was doing on the camera. So even if there was a little tweak in those editing, especially for the other man that was saying, now because now Titan Rise, you know. So those are the dynamics, you know, in the production.
Interesting. Like you've mentioned, pitch shift. Just for clarity, right? I understand that you're probably referring to the tool on any of the DAW that you use, digital audio workspace. There's a tool, pitch shift, where one can actually make this his or her voice sound deeper or lighter. So I just wanted to be clear that you meant that, or you actually meant, but with your voice, which is also possible, you know, you did the pitch shift thing. Which of the two?
Yeah, like I said, you see, no matter how, effects or machines cannot do for you some things, no matter how crazy the effect is. Okay, so for instance, if your voice is not thick, if you go using the pitch shift, there is a limit to what you can do, else you start sounding robotic. You know, so I had already given it that low frequency. No, madam, no, because not Titan Rise. You know, I gave it that feel already, and then I just need to add something a bit because I don't want it to come close. So it's like you're just going from one note to the next, not like you're not going full length. You know, so pitch shift is on audition, just like you mentioned. It's on Cubase. It's on almost any DAW you can find around.
Great. Now we've even gotten into production. So let's talk about voiceover production. One of my bosses in the industry lately has been campaigning that voice actors should learn about audio production. And I think it is very, very important.
Very important. Very, very.
Yeah. Especially because the industry globally is, you know, shifting gradually to home studio setups.
Yeah.
Since 2020, the lockdown really exposed us to the necessity to have home studio setups, and a lot of us have adopted that. I'm speaking from my home studio, and I keep working every day to make sure that I have a better recording space. But beyond the recording space, aside from that, you need to know how to produce yourself. Self-directing is a thing that comes with, owning a home studio. Let's talk about production. How did you understand the technicalities for production in voiceovers?
Okay. I think it starts from, it's garbage in, garbage out. It's what you have that you can produce. If you have no clue of what a proper voiceover should sound like, even if you can use the DAW, at best you come out with, nonsense, because what you don't know, you can't produce. That is why it is not the finest of pianists, if you're in the world of music, that are the best of producers in the music production. In fact, those who play the piano too much, they are really very good. They may have limitation making music because there is that bias for the instrument that they love. And, all of their concentration is just on it. But if you have a mind that can put music together, which is an element of every instrument, as we say, okay, let everything sound just like one. Because when you begin to notice the taste of a spice in a stew, then it has spoiled that stew. The beauty of adding any spice to any stew is to blend such that you can't even tell the taste, but the food is tasty. So, but by the time you can now notice and say, oh, it is curry they use, this is the curry. Once you can taste exactly the thing, then you have spoiled. So the whole concept of voiceover is such that you must know what a proper voiceover should sound like. I listened to some voiceovers, they had a lot of reverb and they're like, this is whack. The fact that that plugin is there does not mean you should use it. That is not the purpose. Voiceover, you should still be clear, we should still understand you, except you are making creative or dramatic voices, you want to make oral or something, you cannot start saying, okay, let me add this. But you are talking normally, you're advertising for a telecommunication, for instance, or a radio station or a real estate company, and then you're adding effect to your voice. For what? So it is more of what you know that you'll be able to do with the tools that you have. So like you mentioned, every serious voiceover talent must learn how to use at least one DAW that you're familiar with. By the way, those who are listening to us, DAW means digital audio workstation. Whichever one you want to use, is it Audition? Is it Samplitude? Is it Logic Pro? Is it Pro Tools? Is it Reason? Is it FL Studio? Cubase? A lot of them. Whichever one you're familiar with. Like for me, I used Cubase. Audition is the most general, and Cool Edits, in days of Cool Edits before they are wiped, I don't think they exist again. But the things I would do with Cubase, some persons may, until you do a lot of research, you may not realize that you can do the same with Audition. And so it's just to identify, because these tools have similarities. In fact, they're usually more like the same thing. It's just that where you can find a particular feature on one DAW, maybe another place, in another DAW. But once you know the way they work, reverb is reverb on any DAW. Delay is delay on any DAW. Flanger is flanger on any DAW. Equalization is equalization on any DAW. Multiband is multiband on any DAW. Compressor is compressor, maximizer, deezer, exciter, all of them, they are the same. But if you don't know how they work, you won't be able to use them. So I would recommend and advise every voiceover talent, listening to this podcast, just find a place to learn, or you can school yourself. And that is the reason why I started the boot camp. It's not because I want to teach somebody how to do voiceover. In fact, that's why somebody who is already practicing voiceover artist can come to our boot camp, because it's not so much of trying to show supremacy of voice. Nobody can have your kind of voice. Your voice is unique to you. But let me help you so that you can make 100% of the money by teaching you how to edit your own voice. Record, edit, mix, and master your voice. Because if you are a fine voiceover artist and you cannot use the tool, and you go to another place for them to record you, they can even damage your works. And then by the time you are done, like, what? This is not me. I mean, what did you add to my voice, or what did you remove from my voice? Before I could allow somebody to record me, it took a while. It's just one guy that I'm beginning to train to give me the kind of feel. Because if you listen to my voice and my voiceovers, you can't really see any difference. It's almost the same thing. I don't believe in, you talk, or your voiceover, they're listening to it, and then this other person, they're wondering, is he you? Is he somebody else? I try as much as possible to sound exactly like, even when I'm done adding anything, because the things I'm putting is just to enhance it, not to do the job for me. It's just to beautify what I already have. So I advise every voiceover talent, learn it. It doesn't, I mean, in 1 month, max, you are a slow learner. In 1 month, you should be able to do something.
You have a way of saying a lot of things, just codedly. So I would advise anyone who is interested in knowing about audio production and you've not really even known anything, listen to all what has been said so far. I was going to ask a question about what are the things that people interested in this field should pay attention to. I'm talking about production, but then you went on to mention those features or tools, right? I don't know, you may want to mention some, particularly, like I would say things like normalizing or compressing, the reverb. All of those things are really important, right? But sometimes you get to use DAWS, but certain plugins and other production softwares help you to kind of like make your production better. So which other production softwares or plugins would you recommend, or do you use, if you use any?
Okay. Basically for me, once it depends on the job, like, and then what I want to achieve. But basically, when I'm done voicing, the first thing I apply is the maximizer. You may not find it an audition. Maybe it will now come as a multi-band compressor. They are almost doing the same job. They are under dynamics. The feel you want your voice to have is just for clarity, and then a bit more loud. Clarity and a bit more loud. Yes, normalization will do same for you. Your gain will do same for you. So it's just knowing how all of these things works, in that you can use A and I decide to use B and we still achieve the same results. Now, when it comes to equalization, the frequency is from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. You know where your low frequency belongs, your mid-range, and then your high. You know that when you are increasing your low frequencies, you are increasing the depth, the feel. You're increasing your high frequency, you are touching the tweets. If you go towards the mid, then it gives you this hollow sound like a megaphone. You don't want that in your voice. So basically, push a little of your low frequency to give it that surround sound. Push a little of your high to give it a tweet. So there is a balance of, it is grounded, it's surround, and it is crisply clear. So a feel of both, but if you just do the high and then you do the low and you leave the high, it is deep, but it is not bright. If you do the high and you ignore the low, it is bright, but it is not surround. So I go for low and high, and I keep the mid the same level. And then, you have that and sound. So basically, but the rest of reverb, I hardly use reverb because there is no purpose for it. Except I want to give a robotic sound somewhere. Maybe I've been talking, and then I just want to do, some funny thing. I could just add it to just one line. And then for delay, maybe my payoff. But some corporate artists, you don't even want to add, delay, because it makes it start sounding like a local, it's not a revival church. It's not a crusade. You're not all these local. I'm sorry, the voice was like, they scream, and I feel for them because years from now they may not be able to use that voice again. I voice Yoruba jingles, and it will amaze you that you want to see the same person, especially the ones that I have to shout. I try to avoid them because immediately I'm done with one, I feel the pain in my voice.
In your voice.
That's the truth.
A question that people will be longing to ask is the difference between mixing and mastering. These are two words we get to hear when working production, but many people cannot differentiate the difference. You've been into music production, voiceover production, so you should know very well what those two means. Please give us clarity on that.
All right, so mixing, just from the word mixing, English, is mixing, like mixing all the elements of your voiceover or your music together to come out with one sound. All right, such that every element is not sounding separately. I just told you about the production of the Titan Rice. There is a background noise. There is a spoon and the dish coming together. There is somebody talking. There is music there, and everyone is playing their role, and none is trying to outshine the other. You can give preference to them based on their importance in the production, and that's mixing. You have your multi-track, your voice is somewhere, this other element is here, this other element is there. Ability to say, give them the equal or different proportion in terms of volume, in terms of velocity, and say, okay, you guys, you ambience, you can't overshadow my voice, just stay a little below. You music, come a little above the ambience because I need you to create a feel that is a party. You voice, you are the main character here, go up than any one of them. You spoon, come at this other side. That's mixing. Sometimes you want to pan, you want something to sound at the left speaker, this one I want to sound at the right speaker. You want to put effect only on the ambience, you don't want to put it on the voice, or you want to put it only on the voice, you don't want it on the ambience. So when you have your multi-track, which is multiple tracks, like track 1, my voice, track 2, this, track 3, this, track 4, this, and you have like 7, 10 elements just for one, voiceover job. The ability to blend all of these things together is called mixing in the right proportion. Now, when you are done and you have your mix down, you export them out as either an MP3 file or WAV file or OMF or AFF, different countries and different standards that they want their, files to be exported. Then you go to the mastering. Every DAW has a mastery preset, so that once you click on that preset, bam, and drop your audio, it touches it up, just like a cake mode. You put the flour, everything in it, it just gives you that shape. But if you also know what you want your overall output to sound like, which is the mastering level, so say, okay, let me master it for this so decibel. Maybe when you're done mixing down, everything you have is just maybe 2.3 MB. By the time you're mastering and then you start adding the exciter, the multi-band processor, which is overall on your stereo file, the whole output coming out now as stereo file. These little things you have to boost the overall perception of the sound is the mastering. Now, mastering is very delicate in that people can do a good mixing and spoil it at mastering. So what I advise is don't try to add too many things to your mastering. Let it be majorly about the boosting, overall boosting, of the wave file, to make your element come out more loud, not necessarily to now tweak what you have done. It should not make it sound different. It should only enhance it and make it sound better. So by the time you are mastering and then you are now adding things, unnecessary things, it's like you have done a beautiful painting and then you splash paint on the old drawing again. So one needs to be careful at mastering level to say, what are the most important things? Usually they are whatever you need to add that boosts your overall volume and feel or the velocity of your production is what mastering should be about. How it sounds from one output to another. If you play it on a small phone, how does it sound? You play it, sometimes you are in the studio, you are deceiving yourself. What you have played is sounding good. You are sounding deep to yourself.
Yeah.
Then you play it on another device, like, who is this rabbit? Is it the same person? So we recommend that when you are mixing or you're at mastering level, you sample it on different devices before your final submission. So you can play it on a home theater speaker. Home theater speaker will deceive you because it's designed to give you a theater feel. So you work with your monitor, your studio monitor. Based on your capacity. If you have money for something small or big, it's still the same job. Just go for a good, quality from a reputable, company or brand. I have quite a number of them that I've used over the years, from the KRK to the, KRK Rocket to Hemodio to Presodos to Beringa Truth. I mean, there are a lot of them. So just know, and then these speakers have different behaviors. So if you're using Yamaha HS8, for instance, it gives you a feel. Some of them have more, they boost more of low frequency. And then you play it on another monitor, it's not sounding exactly the same. So what you do is just listen on 2-3 different devices. Once you are satisfied with what you are hearing, then you can go on. There are jobs you produce on your system when you're in the studio. The background, the bed is normal to you. By the time you play it on phone, it's looking like the bed is struggling with the voice, wants to overshadow it. So you have to go back to the studio and say, okay, let me bring down the bed. My voice is most important, on this job. So those are the dynamics.
Wow. You literally schooled us on mixing and mastering, and I know there's still a lot to this. All of this that we're talking about is in sounds. Once you can understand sound production, you need to train your ears to understand, your own training. Even Mike, you just talked about monitors. Understanding the kind of microphone that you use, if it's dynamic, if it's condenser, if the way it captures sound, if it's
the receptive ability. Some mics are unidirectional, some are bidirectional, some are omni. I mean, you don't want to use something that is omni in the studio. You may to mess up your audio. So something bidirectional will be fine. That's what most condenser mic comes with. Microphones are designed based on their receptive ability and structural designs. These are some of the things we teach on our bootcamp or at our bootcamp rather. And so, microphones as transducers that converts, acoustic energy to electronic energy, and then understanding how each of these mics work. So that you just don't go and buy. You saw one microphone that is shining. People like this one that is good with USB cord. I just laugh at them.
Oh my God. I tell you, I told somebody one day, I said, and this is supposed to be a joke anyway, but there's a bit of truth in it, that the moment you see those very shining ones, especially the gold ones, just run.
No, it's for costume.
A lot of them are, sorry to say, they're toys. Hey guys, so here's a quick commercial. Well, if you're in Nigeria and you're probably just starting voiceovers or wanting to get into voiceovers, or you're already doing voiceovers, but you need the right quality audio equipment, mics, monitors, headphones, audio interfaces, and so on, Coded Voiceovers is the plug for you. We consult, sell, and distribute quality audio across Nigeria at the best prices. If you want to make a purchase or find out more, send a mail to codedvoiceovers@gmail.com or a WhatsApp message to +234 906 087 8154, +234 906 087 8154, or just send a DM to us on Instagram at Coded Voiceovers. And the best part is, wherever you are in Nigeria, you'll get your gears delivered to you in less than a week. All right, so let's get back to the podcast. You need to do a lot of research, but we can go on and talk about Mike's production and all of that. Let's get into, there's a story I would like you to tell. I'll save that for last, because it's an interesting story of how you made your first million in voiceovers. Let's talk about the voiceover bootcamp. Okay. Why did you create the bootcamp?
Yeah, like I always say, the bootcamp is the first we've had in Nigeria to date, except somebody starting tomorrow. I know there is Voiceover Academy, there are workshops. I said, what we want to do is a bootcamp. And if you look at the word bootcamp, it means intensive. It means, strictly practical. hands-on. So I don't want to come and tell people this is how to voice. It's not so much of that. It's so much of how to make a voiceover. And that's the ideology we had in mind when we wanted to, start the bootcamp. And that has been the focus at our bootcamp. So we bring an array of voiceover artists, aspiring voiceover artists together. In fact, when we had the first 2 editions, we collaborate with radio stations who send in their staffs, actually 2 of their staffs, each, particularly those who are partnering with us, to learn it. So I know you can speak good English. Fine, you have done some voiceover, beautiful. Can I show you what I've learned over the years on how to make a good voiceover and how to create it yourself? Not necessarily, you got a gig, you have to rely on the producer in your radio station. Until it's available, you can't do anything. Or you go to this person, your voice, put down your voice, 2-3 days, you're still calling him, he's telling you he's busy. I want you to be able to do something for yourself and possibly start off your home studio. That is the focus, for Voiceover Bootcamp. And it's always intensive. When we start from morning till 6 p.m., I tell you, we are still on it. Our students usually come and there is no single set that don't say, no, thank you, Mr. Charles. We had too much. You literally give us more than we paid for, because there are enough information, to give out. So the bootcamp is majorly for people who are already practicing voiceover, or who are aspiring voiceover artists, to be able to own the craft themselves and be able to do everything there is, to voiceover without needing anyone.
Yeah,
that is the ideology for the voiceover. And we've had 3 editions. We had 2 in Ibadan. We had the last one in Lagos. It was fantastic. And we've always been having Peter Baker on every session, who is a veteran voiceover talent based in England, over 40 years experience in the broadcast media industry, worked with BBC and voiced, hundreds, if not thousands of voiceover across the globe.
We'll be taking thousands for someone in the stature of Peter Baker. If you just go on YouTube and type Peter Baker, you would understand what we're talking about. In case you don't know him,
he has over 100,000 subscribers on his YouTube.
Great. I love what you're doing with the bootcamp. Something I'm curious to know, because I remember the last one you did was in Lagos. That was about last month. For people who aren't in Nigeria or who aren't opportune to get to the location physically, do you have an online form or an online platform
for the
version
first
of this?
For the first time, before this year runs out, we're already planning to have the first ever virtual experience of the bootcamp. So instead of the 1-day thing we are doing 3 days this time, because I know we can't have the full stretch of the whole day online. People will be tired, So we are trying to break it down to 3 days. It's going to be like a night session, just like we're talking now, but around this time, day 1, day 2, day 3, and then we're going to, give certificate to every of our trainees. We're also going to be having practical sessions. I also used to give my samples, some of my plugins to my students. I give them books on how to get jobs as a voiceover talent all around the world. We have almost 100 websites, paid and free ones that they can leverage on to get jobs. What else do we do? And then we issue certificate. The certificate is carrying Voiceover Bootcamp Nigeria and Voiceover Masterclass UK. We got that approval from Peter Baker, Voiceover Masterclass, to endorse the certificate that we issue to our students at the bootcamp. And that's what we have been doing, in the last 1 year.
Great. Fantastic. A lot of things that you've mentioned. I'm going to try as much as I can to drop the links in the description of the podcast. So for people wondering how they can connect, you will be finding links in the description, plus the viral video we're talking about the other time. Same will be dropped in the description of the podcast. Before we go, let's talk about million Naira gig, or how you made your first million, because this is very interesting. I read a little bit of that story and I'd like you to share it with me and the audience right now.
Okay. So I would say your audience are gonna be better hearing this first before the event I'm holding, because it's supposed to be on the 17th of October. But
This is exclusive.
So I think it was 2013. I was writing my final exam in school, and a friend reached out to me and said, "You are a comedian." Because I used to be a comedian. I didn't talk about that. You're a comedian, you also have a studio. We want to create something. Our company just got a job. In fact, he didn't know the details. He just said, "Come around, you're a comedian. We need a comedian who also has a studio. Because if we get any comedian, we will still have to pay somebody who has a studio and is going to be charging us more. But you fit into that role perfectly. Can you come to our office?" So I got there. I met these two old men, they're in their 40s. And at that time, when somebody's in their 40s at 2013, you can imagine, and, they said, "We learned that you're a comedian. Can you do this for us? There is this contract we got with MTN Nigeria to create jokes, Akpos Chronicles." At that time, Akpos was going viral. Akpos.
Yeah.
You start reading different articles, different papers, you see Akpos. Akpos will be playing this role. I mean, before this internet sensation, there was nothing like Instagram, that superstars then,
Sorry for continue here. I remember having an app dedicated to Akpos jokes. That was how serious Akpos was back then, when comedy online, skits and all of that wasn't a thing. So I just wanted to emphasize. Go on.
Yeah, so Akpos joke, yes. So they called it Akpos Chronicles. So we found, they would go online, gather all the scripts for me, because the jokes were in scripts. You just read and laugh. So they wanted somebody who could bring it to life, who could play those characters. And then I fit the role. And I remember on that table that day, they say, "Okay, what do you charge per studio session?" And I said, "My studio session is 10,000, then production is 10,000, then voiceover this, and then times how many sessions are we going to need to produce 1,500? I wrote a bill of 11 point something million.
Wow.
And then they laughed at me. They laughed. They said that I'm not being realistic. Would they even make up to that in this project? This and that. I should go and repackage that. Should be realistic and write and come back. And, I brought it down to I think, something over 1 million. Close to 2 million.
Okay.
I brought it down. I don't know how they did that for me, but obviously nobody can try that with me again. But for me, it was about the money. At least it's million. Let's go. So I took it up, and they gave me 21 days, which is 3 weeks, to produce 1,500 skits.
Wow.
And to produce 1,500 skits, I know weekends for me cannot work. They're usually fixed because of my commitments, spiritual commitment and all, weekends. So I have only Mondays to Friday to work, which means if I divide Monday to Friday, is 15 days. I must produce 500 per week. To produce 500 per week, I must produce 100 per day. To achieve 100 a day, I must be able to do 50 in the day, 50 in the night. If you have a vision, they say your vision or your goal must be SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, and time-bound, realistic and time-bound, the acronym SMART. So I broke it down and said, okay, even if it's looking big, 1,005 is a lot. If I'm able to do 50 during the day and 50 jokes in the night, I'll pull it off. And so I started producing. The first time I said, "Yeah, go and start something," I remember they made the first deposit of 500,000. That was big for me. Coming together at once at that time, So I just went, phew. I bought petrol. Thank God I had equipment I had to do. Bought petrol in my gen, got two of my friends. You'll be acting a boss wife. You'll be acting a boss junior brother. If I need you to act another role, I will tell you. But me, I could play a course and play multiple roles. I think that was where this characterization came in for me. Because I didn't need too many people so I can keep enough profit. So I had to play different roles about the same time. And that was it. Working day and night. I open the studio at 8 a.m. I shut down at 6 p.m. I go home and shower. I come back and resume night. again for 10. I close at 6 a.m. like back to back,
Wow.
like that.
Wow. And within 21 days, you created 1,500 comedy voiceovers.
Yes.
Damn. It's hard to imagine really what you must have gone through. But then
Crazy,
you got your
but the
first.
money was good.
Money was good. Wow.
The money
And
was my motivation.
That's
And then they called
Mm.
me later in the year, like, guy, what you did for us the other time, we'd like to do it again, but you give us rebate this time. But at that time, my eyes was open. Like, no. And that's how we didn't continue with it. But they already made the money because I learned that they were going to move their materials to the other telecommunications. That's what I heard. And then how many billions, let me not say billions, they say hundreds of millions of subscribers that, MTN alone has. And then to listen to one joke, even if you don't listen to the end, I think that time was 20 Naira or 30 Naira. So yeah, it was crazy. Now multiply that by 1,005.
You see, you should be rolling in millions because the royalty of the usage fee, all of that, I guess those were things that wasn't in contracts as of the time you got the job.
We didn't do all of those paperwork.
This point of our conversation is one of the things that drives me to do what I'm doing. There needs to be a lot of education in the voiceover industry, particularly in Africa and in Nigeria, because we are still catch up with what's obtainable in Western countries, especially in the US and the UK. We need to learn the business side of voiceover, the technical side of voiceover. I think we've been doing a lot about talking about how to do voiceovers, right? How to produce voiceovers. But when we go to the legal and the business side of voiceover, talking about contracts and all, a lot of us are still novice in that field. And I believe we're coming into that consciousness. We're beginning to understand how they work, especially for people who interface with clients internationally, using pay-to-play platforms, voiceover websites, and all. So for those listening again, I encourage you, learn these things so that you wouldn't make the mistakes some of us made in the past. Just like the 1 million, it seems like a lot of money, right? But in retrospect, you know that you made a huge loss on that deal. Yeah.
Of course.
Really, it's been interesting talking to you. I've taken your time, and I must appreciate you for sharing all of this with me. Just before I go, what are your top 3 voiceover genres, the type of voiceovers you love to do the most? And then you give us your advice for up-and-coming voice talent.
Okay, so for me, I think I do well. I love commercial. I love maybe trailers also. And then maybe a bit of corporate. Sometimes. But I love something that allows me express myself well. I don't like something that is too formal. So that's why corporate will come last for me. But I love commercial. I love the fact that I can come in from different angle, for it. Then the trailers helps me to also do a lot of creativity with my voice. For corporate, it's just straight to the point. You just want to give it clean, clear, and the way it can be understood, not necessarily adding too much of drama. Audiobooks, a bit of it, but the first 3 will be commercial, trailer, and then corporate.
Your advice to up-and-coming talent?
Yeah, I'd love to advise every upcoming talent listening to me that you can be all that you desire to be. Those who are superstars today, they were novice yesterday. Keep believing in yourself, keep learning the ropes, apply yourself to every opportunity that can help you become better. Every day you wake up, strive to be better than the way you slept last night. And, the sky is the starting point.
It's been a great 1 hour plus with you, and you shared so much knowledge and wisdom. For people who want to reach out to you, connect, give you voiceover jobs, or even learn from you, how can they reach out to you?
All right. My email address, voiceoverbootcamp@gmail.com. voiceoverbootcamp@gmail.com. On Facebook, Alade Charles. On Instagram, Hebbyboss is spelled HEBBYBOSS. HEBBYBOSS. There is a line you can send WhatsApp message. I don't know if that is allowed. It's just a text, not call. +234 8158639668. And you can drop a message or you do a mail to voiceoveroutputcamp@gmail.com. I will be there anytime to respond to your message.
Thank you very much. I'm going to help by putting all of that in the show notes. That's the description under this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, you just listened to my guests, an expert voice actor, audio producer, radio manager who goes by the name Charles Alade. Yeah, I'm sure if you listen to this point, to this episode, you must have learned a lot. I would also endear you to share this podcast with other voiceover enthusiasts in Nigeria and outside Nigeria, internationally in the continent as well. Let people learn about voiceovers and grow. And with this said, this is the end of today's episode. I would say keep learning and keep voicing. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell someone about it. Follow the podcast on Everything VOs on all social media platforms. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.